Before we get started with today's episode, going back to UMass with my guest host, John Smith, I just wanted to send out a quick thank you to all the listeners and viewers out there at the True Crime Monkey podcast and the True Crime Monkey YouTube channel. As you know, we just launched the channel and the podcast about 1 month ago, and thus far the following and the support has been great, even better than I expected. What many of you may not know is it was actually Mara's case that was the inspiration and catalyst for me to start the podcast and the YouTube channel. So, in order to make Mara's case grow even further, I'd like to put a challenge out there to all the viewers watching today's episode. The month of May has 5 Tuesdays, so that would mean 5 new episodes. If we can get the subscriber count up to 1,000 within 1 week of the launch of this particular episode, we'll do not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 full episodes on Mara's case during the month of May. Why? Because May is Mara's birthday, and we want to make May Mara Murray May. So sit back and enjoy today's episode. And if you like what you see, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It helps get Mara's story out to more people, and that's what we want, because somebody out there knows something.
You wanted the best, you got the best. The hottest podcast in the world, True Crime Monkey!
Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the True Crime Monkey podcast and YouTube channel. We're here with John Smith for the second episode in the Mara Murray series, but the first real episode that we're going to get into some details. Our first episode was mainly just to introduce the case to those who may not know about it or haven't really looked into it in a while. So let's get into it. Say hello to John. And John, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing very good. Thank you, Jeffrey. Hope everybody else out there is doing well.
All right, before we get started, it's kind of important to preface what she was doing at UMass, why she was there, and things that may have happened before that. She did enroll at West Point, U.S. Military Academy, following her sister Julie's footsteps. But while she was there, she was involved with an incident of shoplifting, and that was during the required trip that all sophomores take to Fort Knox in Kentucky. She stole a very minor cosmetic item. I believe it was lipstick or lip gloss, under $5, but nonetheless was an honor violation for West Point cadet. That got her into a little bit of trouble there, and she did have to go before a hearing board, which at that time is when she met Billy Rausch, and we'll get more into Billy a little bit later. But he acted more or less as a liaison between the West Point Review Board and Mara. But she did transfer out her sophomore year and enrolled in UMass, at UMass, in the nursing program. Very tough program, and she was doing well and was on the dean's list. But while she was at UMass, she got into a little more trouble, and that involved some credit card fraud. She, and most likely some others as well, had been using a stolen or shared credit card, and it ended up in the Hadley Police Department running more or less the sting operation, and Mara was the one they caught. When they noticed that the same credit card had came up, it was flagged. They went ahead and had the delivery person go ahead and go to UMass, to her dorm, deliver the food, and at that time, they performed their sting operation. They, quote, arrested her, took her mugshot, but they did not take her in. She wasn't booked, anything like that. And she had to appear before a judge, which she did, and basically was just told if she would keep her record clean for 3 months, all this would be removed from her record and she would be clean. But unfortunately, before that 3 months could have time to expire, Mara disappeared. So let's go ahead and take a look back and get John's input on everything here. Going back to Thursday, which is the day of the call with her sister Kathleen, which happened at 10:10 p.m. John, give us a little bit of your insight on that one and what you feel took place, and if you feel that call was what put Mara over the edge, and what her supervisor, Karen Mayotte, said put her in a state of similar to comatose state. So, John, what's your feelings on that?
Well, again, having heard what Kathleen has to say and actually speaking to Kathleen before many times, Um, you know, we never actually discussed that phone call, which, is kind of strange, but I never really thought about it too much. But again, you have to think about what we saw in the Oxygen documentary, and what she said about how she had just told her sister about Tim, her boyfriend, bringing her to the liquor store right after she got out of rehab. So if that's all that was discussed in that phone call, I have a hard time believing that that is what caused Maura to go into a state of, whatever, catatonic, or not even able to speak or whatever. I just don't see that happening. This is a girl that was, at West Point. I mean, she's a very smart girl. She's, in the nursing program at UMass, which is extensive. I just don't see that overwhelming her that much to bring her to that point.
Yeah, I agree with you, John. I don't see that as being something that could put someone into a quote comatose state or get them to the point that just couldn't speak about anything else. So, from what we are told, her supervisor, Karen Mayotte, comes to her dorm because she was told by another person also involved in the security detail that Maura needed attention, that something was definitely wrong. And originally we were told that she arrived there at about 10:30. That story did change at some point, and I honestly don't remember when or why it changed. But John, what's your feelings on the true time that happened and how it fits into the different scenarios of things that we've heard happen either at 10:30 or on the other end at around 1:30 when the call may or may not have happened?
Right. Well, again, the 10:10 phone call, Maura was at the desk. We know that for sure. Well, I mean, that's what we've been told, and we have to accept that as fact that she was there. And then this phone call, if it was what upset her the most, of the way she was, and then that is when Karen Mayotte was told by another person that Maura was upset and that she should go see her. So, you know, I don't see that happening, that Maura would have been that way. So again, we have to go with the thing that this was at 10:30 or whatever. And then these times get changed to later in the night, like at what I believe it was 1:30 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Karen Mayotte changes her timing from the 10:30 or whatever to the 1:30 in the morning. And that's when she escorted Maura back to her room because of the way she was, the shape that she was in. So, again, what do we take with that? Do we take that, it's memory, or is it something else? Is she just? I mean, I'm not saying she's lying, but is there something that she, for some reason, that she would just forget? I guess easily forget or put it out of her mind. Or
do you ever recall hearing a reason or remember a time frame when that time did shift from around 10:30 to the 1:30?
It's been so long, I really don't remember, Jeff.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
I don't recall myself, so I don't have
no,
any recollection of it.
no,
For
hard to
those out
tell.
there who may or may not know, Mara was doing her shift in Melville Hall, which is not the same one that she lives in. She lives in Kennedy. However, those two are extremely close, basically next door to each other. It's only a 50-yard walk, maybe, from Melville to Kennedy and vice versa, obviously. Um, John, what do you recall about Karen Mayotte's story as to when she walked Mara over, what she said to her at the door? I do remember her saying that Mara was in a state that she couldn't even pull out her card to swipe herself into her own dorm. However, being a security supervisor, Karen had a card that would get her into all the university's dorms. So she's the one who swiped it, led her into the lobby. And as a rule, at that time of evening, they weren't allowed to take anyone past the first floor, which was the lobby. So, do you recall any other details about that or anything you want to share with us?
Uh, Actually, I didn't realize that they didn't allow anyone else to go up, um, besides the, like Maura.
All right.
Um,
But I would still think that Karen would have the ID that would get her to anywhere she needed to go in any
Well,
dorm.
that's what I was just going to say. Is
Yeah.
it strikes me as odd that that even to break that, if it was a rule, to break that rule, because if somebody's in that shape, you want to make sure they get back to their dorm room. I mean, I don't know what floor Maura was on, but
I believe she was on the fourth floor. I think her
so
room
she's
number was
yeah, so she's got
415.
to go up 4 flights of stairs, and lots can happen in 4 flights of stairs. And
Right.
if you're in that shape, if you don't go to the right floor, there's so it's just kind of odd that she wouldn't have escorted her all the way. I know there was talk about going to offering her to go to Dunkin' Donuts,
Mhm.
which um, again, I would have said, can I come up to you and talk to you in your room or something like that, or can come and we can talk in the office or whatever, rather than bringing her out into an environment, another environment, even though it's
Yeah.
Dunkin' Donuts or whatever, and maybe I don't think it would be too busy at 2 o'clock in the morning, but just, and I'm not saying that that's the wrong thing to do, but
Yeah. The other thing that probably should be mentioned as well is the reason that Karen says she didn't go up with Mara is because she said she had a roommate. So maybe Karen, if all this is true, felt that Mara would go up and talk to her roommate and she would help calm her down. However, the one thing that kind of jumped out at me, if Karen was adamant about saying I can't go past the first floor, then why not call that roommate down to come meet Mara and walk her up there?
very
Kind
good.
of kind of something I thought about. There's all kinds of things. We have the benefit of hindsight now, but
I
that's one
really,
of the
yeah,
things that's very strange.
I really like that you just said that. I've never contemplated that before. That's another interesting thing, that she would not have done that. Yeah,
Hmm.
because she would have had that ability. And again, you get the whole thing. I mean, this girl is in charge of security, and she, she's stating that she was good friends with Maura. That's her
Hmm.
words exactly, and that she loved Maura, but she didn't know if she had a roommate or not. Now, I would think that that would be something that would be talked about. And I think
True.
Karen even said the fact that she didn't even know Maura had a boyfriend, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, and even basing a lot of my stuff about Karen on what she said with her interview with Tim and Lance, she said that she had known Mar for 6 months and they had become good friends. Yeah, I would think you would know if your best friend had or not best friend, your good friend had a boyfriend or not.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very strange. But on the other side of the coin, I don't really see any reason. I don't see Karen May not having any involvement, and I don't see any reason for her to not say anything but exactly the truth. So it's kind of tough. It just doesn't
Right.
make sense. Yeah.
And that's
Um,
the issue, is why doesn't it make any sense? Is it just, thing people do weird things and at different times under different circumstances? Maybe.
and and maybe it's just a case of this. This interview with her happened. 13 years minimum, maybe more than that after the fact. Maybe you remember something very strongly one day, and then you do an interview 3 months later, and you remember a little bit differently. Maybe it's just a case of not having great recollection of the time.
Mm-hmm.
One other thing to throw in about the dorm, kind of like to get your opinion on. A lot of people have said that she had packed up her dorm and she was ready to leave. I personally don't think she had ever unpacked. Um, UMass does have a long Christmas break. Their students are required to take everything out of their rooms, off the wall, everything, and they do a big cleaning of all the dorm rooms. Do you think she had not unpacked, or do you think she had packed up to leave when they found her stuff at her dorm after she had disappeared?
Well, I guess the first thing I want to say is, man, that must really suck to have to
Oh
pack
yeah.
up all your stuff for a certain amount of time so that they can clean your room and paint, and then you got to bring it all back again. But anyway, that's
Mhm.
another story.
And they switched some roommates during that
It's
time too, from what I hear. So you may come back after Christmas and not have the same
not have the same room. Wow.
roommate,
Yeah.
roommate.
Yeah. Or roommate.
Yep.
Yeah. As far as whether the stuff was packed up or because she was leaving, or just told not unpacked, I mean, because it's so close to as when she would have just come back, then it makes sense to me, like you said, that it was just not unpacked from when she brought it all back to her room.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay.
It was still set up. Computer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
All right. Well, let's continue on that same day. We're still on Thursday the 5th. There are some things that transpired that night that many people, including myself and you, we've had to consider. We don't know whether they are or not connected, but that's the hit and run on Patrick Vasi that happened at the corner of Triangle and Mattoon Street. Um, a lot of people have suggested that perhaps Mara left her post that night, ran out for whatever, coffee, um, lunch, whatever the case may be, wasn't paying attention and actually hit Patrick Vasi. And a lot of that is based upon the damage to her car. Um, do you feel it's possible that that could have happened? And if so, what had to be in place for that to fit into this scenario?
Well, again, we have to go
and also
to,
throw in the call to Billy at 12:07.
right. So we have to go back to Karen's, statement of the first one at 10:30 or so, and then the second thing about 1:30, because that of course the later time fits into the Vasi theory better, unless of course she did have her breakdown at 10:30 and she gets escorted back to her room, and she ends up leaving her room for some reason, and she gets in the Saturn. She has to walk to lot 12 to go get it. So here's another girl who is supposedly in a catatonic state or whatever doing these things. So she has to go get her vehicle, and then she goes out to go someplace, and the Patrick Vasi hit happens. Now, I know there's so much controversy over the whole damage to the Saturn and the it hitting a tree at the corner. I don't want to tell, anyone, they all have their own theories. And if that's what they want to believe, that's fine with me. But again, I'm going to state that the damage to the Saturn is more likely from an overhang object or consistent with hitting a person, a pedestrian.
Correct. I agree 100%.
And again, I don't say that is what happened 100%. I'm not saying, and again, I think we discussed this before, it might not have been more behind the wheel. Maybe, because in the college days, somebody would go, hey, let me go get, borrow your car, and I'm going to go to the liquor store and we'll have the liquor for the party later. Take my car, and then something happens, okay? And of course, first of all, the shit's going to hit the fan with Fred because Fred had been telling her not to drive it. So there's the first issue. And then this happens. And then, whoever was driving, if somebody else was driving, it's a big deal. If Maura was driving, it was a big deal. But again, we can't, claim that as fact by any means. So then you have the whole thing of if Maura had the breakdown at 1:00 and she gets escorted back to her room at 1:30, Billy had called her earlier, and I think you said it was 12:07 is what you
12:07.
12:07. So if she had a breakdown then from something that Bill had said to her, that doesn't fit into the time frame of the Vasi hit and run anyway, because by the time Karen had gotten to her, it was after Vasi had been hit.
Right. The phone call with Billy was 7 minutes. Yes, correct. There's two ways to look at that whole situation. If it happened at 10:30, that Mara was escorted away, and that gives a little more credence to the Kathleen call being the one that put her in that condition. She goes back to her room. She's there at approximately 11, stays in her room for a bit, decides she's going to go out somewhere, maybe even to Dunkin' Donuts. And I'll show you the path, which is eerily scary because the path from Kennedy to the Dunkin' Donuts passes right through the intersection of Mattoon and skipping my mind from a triangle in my tomb. So that part's scary. And then there's the alternative way to look at it. If this all happened later in the evening, it can't be the Patrick Vasi hit that put her in that condition because the timing of that. He was hit, according to police, at approximately midnight. They found him about 12:20. So there's all kinds of ways to look at it, and it depends on what your theory is as to when Mara actually left with Karen.
Yeah. So yeah, and unless that whole time frame from Karen is totally messed up, and maybe she left earlier. Maybe it was 11:30.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, she escorts Maura back to her room. Maura books out to the parking lot, and what if she's because she's upset about whatever Kathleen told her, and then she calls Bill, or did she call Bill, or did Bill call her?
She called Bill. And the call lasted 7 minutes.
And what if what if she was on the phone? What if she was on the phone with Bill and got more upset, or even on the phone with Bill? Because are we sure that Vasi was right at 12:30, or
they found him at around 12:30, and they estimated that I think they found him at 12:20, and they estimated that it happened anywhere from about 20 minutes prior, that he had been waiting, just laying there in the road for 20 minutes at least. But that would be impossible, in my opinion, to guess how long somebody had been laying there. He could have been hit 40 minutes earlier, 45 minutes. It could have been 5 minutes. I don't know.
5 minutes, because that would fit into my scenario of the, Billy being on the phone with her. She's talking on the phone, inattention, and bang, something happened, and it would make it almost the perfect timing if she was on the phone.
Yeah, there's a couple scenarios that would definitely make this fit, and they got to be considered.
Yes, they do.
Okay. Any other events to your knowledge that happened that night on the 5th? I know the only other one I'm aware of is she did make a phone call to Domino's at 3:40 a.m. that day. I know there's been some things on the internet saying that Domino's may have stayed open till 4. I find that extremely difficult to believe because that's a Thursday night, and I know it's a college campus, but still yet I've never heard of them staying open more than 2:30. Mm-hmm. So what's your feelings on that call? And also the fact that she had also called that same Domino's the night before 2 times, and they were for 5 minutes each. I'm sorry, 3 minutes each. She called at midnight and at 12:10. 2 calls right in a row to the same Domino's. Mm-hmm. A lot of speculation there. Have you got any opinions or ideas on that?
That's really hard to tell. Of course, we know that she did have, her eating issue. But again, you brought up the night that she was catatonic or whatever. Again, we go to the whole thing is, why is she calling for pizza? Did she, was she calling for a pizza then? I find it hard to believe that they are open too. And I think that one of those rumors were squelched quite a while back, that somebody that lived in that area said no, they weren't open that late. Mm-hmm. So unless she knew somebody from Domino's that, a lot of times I remember when I used to run a Pizza Hut here in Littleton, and people would, I would make pizzas at the end of the night just to bring home because, oh my God, buddies are waiting for me. They supply mm-hmm. the beer and I bring home the pizzas. And then especially if some people, they'd call in and they didn't come get their pizzas or whatever. So we'd always have a pizza. So could it have been something like that? She was just like, help me out.
Yep.
I want a pizza.
But I was a Domino's delivery driver as well.
Yeah.
And I know all the stuff that happened at closing. So,
yeah. So yeah. And we know that she had called there before. I think there's more than even what we've seen, I think, on the phone bill. Mm-hmm. So again, very hard to tell if it was just, if they were open and by chance or she could get some pizza, that's fine. Maybe, like I said, maybe she knew the person that worked there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to my recollection, I don't ever recall anybody looking into seeing who might have been the Domino's manager at that time or employees to see if they had any connection to Mara. I've never heard it really talked about, and it's something
I
that
called,
probably should have been looked at.
yeah, I mean, I would almost think so, just because of the time frame and everything. I mean, if it wasn't,
Mhm.
if it was a few days before, it really wouldn't have made much difference.
Yeah, no one would have noticed a couple days
5 days
before.
before, nobody would have paid much attention to it. Um, but I actually called there because I had an interest in a person that I thought might have been the delivery man, and I'm not going to say his name, but I had come up with a name or whatever, and I called the Domino's at on Russell Street, and I called and I said I was wondering if I could speak to the man. No, I didn't say if I could speak to the manager. I went, I was wondering if so and so was working tonight,
Hmm.
and I was like, oh, I can't share that information with you,
Hmm.
and I just thought that was weird,
And
because
what year did that call take place? Your
um,
call?
probably 2006.
Oh wow. Hmm.
Yeah, it was because I had had the phone bill for a while, and I started working on all that stuff, all the
Hmm.
phone calls on that bill. Um, and again, might have been nothing, but it's always interested me.
Wow. All right. Anything else from Thursday night? Want to go ahead and move into Friday?
I think we can move to Friday.
Okay. All right. On Friday, not a whole lot happening. Anything you know of that you want to discuss on Friday? Go ahead.
Uh, really, there's nothing that I can think of. I was just going to take a look real quick at Moore's cell phone bill and see. Friday would have been what day?
I'm going to bring that up on the screen as well.
Would have been the
Friday would have been the 6th.
6th. Okay, so yeah, because she calls that Domino's at 3:40, and then she calls her mail. She doesn't call anything until or receive any calls until like 6. I'm sorry, yeah, 8:13, or 6:13. I'm sorry, I can't read.
Yeah, 6:13. She
Yeah,
had the incoming call.
yeah, for 17 minutes.
Hmm.
Um,
And
and
I
then
don't have
really
the
it's just her on
Yeah, I
that
don't have
day.
the. I was going to say I don't have the entire bill in front of me, just a few select pages right now. But I do you happen to know if that incoming call was Billy? Does his call records correlate with that one as far as the time frame? And also, to
Oh,
anyone who might be looking at the phone records, keep in mind that Billy's calls are going to be 1 hour different than Mara's.
yeah.
One is on Central, one is on Eastern time.
So, um, yeah. So
And
that's another thing is she does call. See, on Friday she does call Lawton too, and that could be a number where Bill was, but that's a 10-minute call. But pretty much, other than the Domino's call on Friday, it all looks like it was between her and Billy or someone else at Lawton in Lawton, Oklahoma.
yeah,
Got a
I'd
call at
have to
10
compare those two
o'clock.
together. But she had an incoming call at 9:53 for 8 minutes, and then she calls back again. Um, so if that call came in at 9:53, that takes you to 10:01, and all the phone calls are rounded to the minute. Then immediately she calls back to Loudoun, Oklahoma, which I'm
Yeah,
guessing at 10:02. That has to be Billy.
and
And then
that
that
is
the last one was a 10-minute call at 10:02 on Mara's phone records.
right.
But also the strange thing there is that call went out at 10:02 and lasted for 10 minutes. She had another call come in at 10:46, which I'm assuming went to voicemail, but it does say incoming because if she were on the phone with Billy, to have that show up on her bill, she had to have put him on call waiting and answered that phone call. Don't know who that would have been.
Right.
It may have meant nothing. It was only 1 minute. So,
Right. Yep.
yep. All right. If we skip ahead to Friday, we said not a whole lot happened. While we're here on the phone bill, it does look like she called Billy again the night of Thursday at 12:53 a.m. for a 2-minute phone call. I don't know if she actually got a hold of him. Could she have left him a message? Not sure. No more phone calls after that until an incoming call at 12:18 p.m. on Friday. She calls her own voicemail, had another incoming call, and she called Julie on that day for a call that lasted 9 minutes on Friday. And the only reason I bring any calls on Friday is the one that happened at 4:13 p.m. on Friday. She called Reliance Auto. And I'm wondering why she called there, number one. And had Fred asked her to call there by chance, or had Billy asked her to call there? Because we've heard the story of Billy had, quote, good luck at a certain auto dealer there in Amherst area in Hadley. Why, I have no idea why he would be even shopping for a car in that area. He was from Ohio. He went to school in New York. He may have visited down there, but I don't usually purchase cars when I go on visits to see people. Very, very strange to me what happened on that one. Okay, we do know that Fred came into town sometime either Friday night or Saturday morning. We're not really sure when, but we do know that he stopped at least most likely 5 ATMs and took out, I think, $400 at each one. And that was presumably as a down payment or payment to get Mara a new car as they were going to do some car shopping. Just wanted to see what your opinions were, John, on stopping at all those ATMs, because in my experience with ATMs, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. If you were coming in on Friday night and banks were closed, I definitely understand stopping at the ATMs. But with my ATMs, I can take X amount out of any particular account at any time. I don't know if Fred was taking money out of the same account at different locations. Is what we've heard. That makes no sense to me, because once you reach your account limit, it doesn't matter whether you go to 1 or to 12 ATMs, you're still not going to be able to get any money out. For example, I believe my bank is an $800 a day limit on withdrawals. So I could go take 400 out at one, then I could go take 400 out at another. However, I could have just taken 800 out at the first one and been done. So it's never made sense to me why Fred had to stop at so many. Do you have any ideas, opinions, theories on that at all?
Really, no. Again, like you said, I mean, if you can get a certain amount, it doesn't make any sense to go to 3 or 4 or 5 different ones. But who knows? Old school Fred, I don't know. I can't see that there's anything nefarious about it, just because it's something that is going to be able to be traced and tracked.
Yeah, there's a paper trail either way. I've never understood that part.
Yeah. So unless he had a jar in the cellar full of money and he just goes down and takes it out of there, well, no one would be the wiser. But with a paper trail, there's definitely nothing nefarious there. It just makes you go, why?
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah, true. All right, we'll skip up a little bit into Saturday. I believe Mara and Fred did go out shopping in the afternoon, and they had plans to have dinner at the ABC, the Amherst Brewing Company, with Kate. And to the best of my recollection, I believe Fred, Mara, and Kate did stop at a liquor store on the way to the ABC and picked up some items. For the longest time, we had been under the impression that the receipt we see with the, all of Mara's inventory of items included the Franzia wine. However, within the last couple of years, I believe Julius came out and said that wine was purchased the Saturday before, which would mean the time she was with Kate and Fred. So I'm assuming when they stopped on their way to ABC, that's when the box of Franzia wine was purchased and put in the car. At some point after that, because I'm sure they were driving Fred's car at that time. Yeah. So they go ahead, they stop in the afternoon, pick up some liquor, wine, whatever the case may be, and then they had dinner at the Amherst Brewing Company. Then that night, they are going to a party, and we'll talk more about the party in just a moment. They dropped Fred back at his hotel and borrowed Fred's car. Um, I've always had some weird feelings about that, wondering why Fred would loan his young daughter, who's going to be drinking, who's already probably drinking some already, why he would loan them their car for the evening, being that it's a brand new car. But he did, and I don't see that as anything nefarious there either. A lot of parents would do it, but something's just a little strange. Any opinions or thoughts on that at all?
Uh, well, again, like you said, if she'd already been drinking, would that be a wise decision? I don't know. I'm pretty sure that he felt that Maura was responsible. But again, maybe we have to look at the fact that, well, maybe Fred said, well, I've had 4 beers and I don't want to drive you all the way back to the campus and then drive back to my hotel room.
Right. I
So
never even thought about that, but that could be true.
Yeah. Because down there, it doesn't take much there's cops everywhere. So, you might only be going how many miles that is, but the odds are you're going to pass a cop more than likely.
Yeah. Yeah, especially on campus. I mean, there's just tons of them there, and they're just waiting for something, for some student or someone to drive by. The slightest inkling of someone swerving or being drunk, they're going to get you. All right. Well, on that night, as far as the phone bill goes, there were quite a few calls to Kate, but I think those are more or less probably just say, "Hey, we're coming by to pick you up." 8:54 p.m., 8:55 p.m. I personally do not know what time they went to the Amherst Brewing Company. Do you have any idea on that?
I do not. I'm just looking at the bill now and realizing that, yeah, I mean, she didn't make any calls until almost 9. So it seems that they didn't hit there until after that. But again, yeah, and I mean that next call that's made to Kate is like at 9:01. So it's like she called her and left a message, and then maybe called her again because the next one's for 3 minutes, and said, "Hey, we're waiting for you."
Yeah, that would be my guess as well. If they were just coordinating plans to probably pick Kate up and go to the ABC. Okay, so they go ahead and have dinner. They leave. They take Fred back to his motel and come back to campus at UMass. And this is where things start to get a little complicated. They are going to a party. Most of the information we have out there say that this party was held in Sarah Alfieri's dorm room. Sarah Alfieri is a co-worker of Maura's. She does work at an art gallery, which Maura works at as well. Maura has 2 part-time jobs. I don't believe that Sarah is a great close friend to Maura, as definitely not as much as Kate would have been, but Kate may have also been a friend of Sarah, and kind of the three got together that way. Some people have also said that this particular party was held at a different location. So, John, you want to expound on that a little bit and see what your thoughts are?
Well, again, there's always been speculation or talked about as fact, actually, that's where the party was at Sarah's dorm room. I've heard different things that's where it was. I've heard that it could have been at a frat house on Phillips Street. I do want to go back to the calls between when she first called Kate at 8:54 Saturday. There was also a call to a Amherst telephone number, which is I won't say the name, but that was only for a minute. And then she called her mail. And then there's a call to Springfield, Massachusetts as well, which is a number that I've always been trying to figure it out what that was. And then she calls UMass messages. So, was that more plans at some point, or was she still looking for Kate in doing so? Or could that have been somebody else that was going to be at this party?
Hmm. I had always just kind of assumed and never really thought that she was trying to get a hold of someone else that night for the party. I'd always assumed she was trying to get a hold of Kate since those calls were made in such rapid succession. But yeah, that's a possibility that should be considered. Is was she trying to get a hold of another party that may have been, or another person that was going to the party with them or meet them there? Hmm.
And I think that we figured out who that person was that's connected to this number recently.
Hmm.
The MC initials. She was on the track team with Maura.
Yes. Yeah. Um, I've heard that. I had to go back and look and see on different notes. I don't have it written on these particular notes, but yeah, there was a phone number connected, and I do remember the initials MC. Um, but honestly, I don't remember if that was a male or female. Come to think about it.
Female.
Okay. So yeah, definitely something that should be looked at. Um, and regardless of where this party was, I kind of tend to believe it was at Sarah's dorm room for the fact that Sarah said she had passed out at the party and didn't remember anybody who was there, which I don't believe a minute of that. Um, even when you pass out after drinking at a party, you still don't forget the things that happened before then. Let's say you get really drunk at 1 o'clock in the morning. You may not remember what happened from 1 to 4, but you know who showed up at 10 o'clock for your
Yes.
party. So I've never trusted Sarah's recollections or lack thereof of what happened that night. Um, so going forward a little bit, we know she was at the party. Um, Reportedly, she left the party in the ballpark of 2:30, and she left with another male. And that's one thing that comes into play. We've heard a few different stories about who that may have been. One big one is that it was a cousin of Sarah Alfieri, and that's the reason she doesn't recall anybody who was at the party. Um, any opinions or theories there as far as when she left? And we know that she wrecked her car, her dad's car, at 3:33 was a police call. So go ahead and give us your opinions on there and what you think may have happened.
Well, again, like you said, more than likely the party did happen at the dorm room. I mean, going by, I believe it was Kate's statement, we can pretty much take that to be the fact. Now that I've gone, that we know what Sarah had stated and what Kate had stated about how the party was, happening. And then when they get ready to leave, Maura was escorted out by one male that was at the party, and Kate went with another one. Um, so we know that. As far as Sarah being asleep, or passed out, whatever, that's just weird in my opinion as well. I mean, I guess you could be blackout drunk, and you don't recall anything. But we do know that somehow Sarah ended up with Maura's phone that night. If Sarah was passed out drunk, why would Maura give her phone to Sarah?
Right. And if the party happened somewhere else, why would Sarah have it?
Why would Sarah have it?
Mhm.
And then as far as Maura being escorted out with this male who we still don't know who, as a fact, we don't really know if actually one of them was Sarah's cousin. That's what we've been led to believe for many years. The police are familiar with the three men that were there, and those people have been checked out according to the police. I don't think that Julie's been notified name wise of who those three people were. If she does know, I'm not aware of it at this point. But so you've got that time frame in between Maura leaving with this guy, which is say 2:30, and that he was supposed to escort her back to her dorm room, and then the accident happens at 3:33 in Hadley. So you've got that an hour, and let's say hour and 15 minutes to be equal sides. And what happened in that hour and 15 minutes that they left the dorm room and they ended up, because it's only a few minutes to that intersection from UMass. So did something occur, um, let's say in this person's vehicle, in Maura's, or in Fred's car? Was she physically attacked, sexually attacked? I've thought that, that could be a really good possibility. And that if that happened at her at the dorm, maybe even in her dorm room, let's say, if they did go up to the dorm, and it happened there, and then she, ran away and was running from him, and then she gets in the accident because she's, so upset.
I have never thought of this until just now, but throw this one at you. I'm wondering, could this be a possibility that Maura didn't leave her cell phone at Sarah's apartment or dorm room? She had her phone with her. Something happened with this male. This male knew Sarah. She left her own phone with him, and he returned it to Sarah and said, "Hey, give this back to Maura," because he didn't want any further contact with her. Has to be something maybe worth considering.
That's yes. Yep. And because we know that Maura did not call 911 from her accident because she didn't have her phone with her. So we also don't know exactly who called 911 for the accident.
Right. Yeah, that's a big question mark we'd like to know. And I know in the police report for that accident, it happened at the corner of North Maple Street and North Hadley. There, it says that the cadet standing by. We've got some ideas of who that cadet may have been, but the question is, how did Maura not get a DUI test at that time? And the only thing that makes sense is the people that she was with helped her get out of it. And if that were a cadet, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I believe so, because I mean, unless she knew the cop previously, and which I believe was Mark Ruddick. If she knew him, then possibly, he might just say, you've had enough trauma for tonight. I'm not going to arrest you for DWI. And he sends her away with the tow truck driver. So that could be a reasoning. It also could have something to do with the fact that she was on UMass security, so which is basically part of, the UMass police department and cadet system. And then you have the cadet on scenes who could have been sticking up for her, and giving, talking to the cop about it, and
Right. Yeah, a couple of things. I did bring up the police report here, and it definitely was Mark Ruddick who was there as a patrol officer. But also, there was another one there named Barry O'Connor, that appears to also have been on scene. Strangely enough, though, the times are 1 hour apart. So, did they have Maura pulled over there for an hour? I'm not sure.
I know there's a tow slip out there for the company that towed it, and I can't remember the time that it said that they towed the vehicle away.
And the bottom thing on this report does say that UMass cadet standing by.
Yeah, and I mean, again, what does that mean?
Yeah, this is not. If you look at a map of the area, it is not a well-populated area. For a cadet to be standing by, he had to have been in a car in the area. Could he have been in Maura's car? Could he have been in a car that saw the accident happen? I don't know, but it just seems a big coincidence that a UMass cadet driving in another car just happened to be at that same T-bone intersection or T intersection. Yeah.
And unless, I mean, and let's say nothing happened at the dorm or with this other guy, or maybe something did, and maybe she got in touch with somebody, one of the UMass cadets, to follow her back to her father's dorm room because of what had happened. Possibly.
Yeah, I mean, that could be true, but here would be my question. Let's say she was there at the accident scene, it was just her, and she knew a cadet. How'd she get a hold of him? She didn't have her phone.
Yeah, I mean, like, oh yeah, because I mean, if she was, unless it was like happened at the dorm at UMass, and something happened there, and then she met up with this cadet. But again,
No, I'm speaking of the accident site. If she was,
oh
how would there be another cadet there at the accident site unless he had to have been with Mara, or with the,
yeah,
or with, well, he could possibly have been with Reddick. He could have been riding along as a ride along.
yep, and that's a possibility too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So College Motors picks up Mara's father's car, tows it back to the hotel where he is, and Mara supposedly goes into the hotel, gets into Fred's room, and she makes some phone calls there. So I'd kind of like to hear your opinion on both how she got in and the phone call she obviously made to Billy, but from Fred's phone. When did Fred know she was there? How'd she get into Fred's room? Um, and what do you think the conversation with Billy was about?
Oh wow, that's a mouthful. Well, there was talk that when she got back there, she sat in the lobby or
Right.
whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
was crying or whatever. Um, and then I guess people have been spoken to about that, and nobody ever noticed anything. As far as how she would have got into Fred's room, unless I'm pretty sure they probably had key cards by in 2004. Um, so unless when he got his room, he got two key cards and gave her
Yeah,
one.
that would have, for her to have had one. I think they would have had to have planned on her coming back there, and it's very possible. I think that could have happened because if Fred loaned her his car and says, "Hey, I might be home, but it maybe 3 o'clock in the morning before I get back," they could have easily went to the desk and got into their car, so that way Fred wouldn't have to get up to let her in. So it's not very far fetched to think that she had a card as well.
Right. And I mean, other than that, I mean, I can't say anything because I have no clue. As far as the phone calls to Bill, we know that those were made from Fred's phone. What was discussed during that time, I really don't know, but I know that within the past, I believe it's a couple of years, Bill has come out and said that the car accident wasn't even discussed in those two phone calls, if I'm
Hmm.
remembering correctly. And if that's the case, that's just unbelievable to me. I
Yeah, I don't see
mean,
how you don't
why are you
discuss.
so upset, Maura?
Yeah, it just happened
why are
an
you
hour
so
ago.
upset?
And I mean, it's probably far fetched to think of this as well, but could that conversation have been about what may have happened with her and the other male she left the party with?
That could be.
Possibility. I
Would
find
she
it,
turn to him? I mean,
yeah, I find it
I'm
hard for
sorry.
her that she would tell him about it. But if Billy's going to say the conversation didn't involve the car accident, then what else do they have to talk about it? You know, four
Right.
o'clock in the morning.
So, so you bring up a good point because if that's not what the phone call was about, okay, and because we know that there was some issues going on with the Billy and the Mora picture, and it wasn't as pretty a picture as was being painted by Bill and his mother, and the engaged to be engaged thing is, yada yada. So would she turn to Bill in that circumstance? Probably because that's what she had to go to besides her father. And would she tell Bill that? Yeah. And would that upset Bill? Yeah. Yeah, it certainly would. And it explains Billy's really frantic stuff from
Well,
that point on.
yeah, that's why I bring it up because that would definitely be a trigger for some of the unexplained actions of Billy over the next couple of days, especially the phone calls and the frequency of them. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I've always wondered that, when I did hear that Billy said it didn't even involve the accident, the conversation they had, it had to be that. I don't know what else they would talk about. Secondly, and then that is the only thing I can think could make him call as many times as he did over the next couple of days.
Right.
Yeah. All right, so that's Saturday evening. So we're back at Fred's Motel. Um, Mara stayed the night there. Then into Sunday, Fred did take her back um, on campus, and Mara picked up her phone from Sarah. I want to look at some times here. She must have picked up her phone, which that is going to be Sunday the 8th. There were no calls on Mara's phone until 8:26 p.m. She made a call at 8:26, 8:29, 10 p.m., 10:38, 11:13, and those were all to her own voicemail. And then
Yeah.
she makes a call at 11:26 to Fred's cell phone. Those were
Four
the only
minutes.
calls.
Right.
Yeah, those were the only calls made on the 8th. Um, not a whole lot going on that day. Um, we've heard the rumor of someone seeing Mara on campus carrying a large duffel bag, presumably full of cans. Do you recall if that was on Sunday or was that on Monday? And I'm wondering if it was
I'm pretty sure it was Monday.
okay, because I was wondering if it was Sunday and she went to go get her phone from Sarah. Could she have picked up a bunch of cans at Sarah's dorm and had them in a duffel bag when she picked up her phone? Not that it makes any difference either way, but
Difference, yeah.
something I wondered about.
Hmm.
And she later did, we'll talk about here shortly. She did turn in quite a number of cans for deposit at the liquor store.
Mm-hmm.
I
So,
believe on Sunday, I'm guessing Mara was probably sleeping quite a bit during the first part of the day since they were out late the night before and all the traumatic stuff that happened. Um, she probably retrieved her phone sometime in the late afternoon and then, made the calls that we spoke of. Is there anything else you want to add about Sunday before you get into Monday, the day that she was to depart?
uh, no, I think that because she had just spoken to Bill, um, right? She had just spoken to him because of the Saturday night thing, right? With the car. So
Hmm.
was she calling his voicemail? Was she calling her voicemail to see if he had gotten in touch with her? Is all I was going to say. And then she speaks to Fred at the 11:26 p.m. Um,
Well, the thing that jumps out at
so
me with those particular calls, she's calling her own voicemail, not a single call to Billy,
right,
which seems to tell me that whatever the last conversation they had may not have went well.
and so good, right? Yeah, and I mean, then that's it.
Mm-hmm.
As far as contact with anybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, Fred and family back and the girls.
Right. So as we move up to Monday, I will say this on
Oh,
Monday. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, before we move to Monday. So if Sarah had the phone Saturday night, right? Sunday morning, is that correct?
Correct. She would have had it. Yeah, I'm assuming that Mara picked up her phone sometime in the afternoonish hours of Sunday, the 8th.
So, hmm, I'm trying to figure out. Sarah would have had the phone on Saturday late night after all that. Okay.
And the latest thing we see happening on Mara's phone on Saturday night is the call to Kate at 9:01 p.m. No calls
Right.
after that.
Now let's say that Sarah still had more didn't get her phone back from Sarah. Well, no, that's kind of close. Yeah, it seems like it would be more a call in her own mail because at first I was thinking it had Sarah checked Marta's voicemail if Sarah still had the phone, but that's like at
Uh,
8:26 on Sunday night. So
I would say that's unlikely because if I remember correctly, even though you called your own, back in that day, obviously you had to call your own number to get your voicemail. Um, I think you still had to put in a code to get in there. I could be totally wrong on there,
Yeah, I think
but
you're right.
I don't know why Sarah would have, well, actually I do. Why would Sarah would have any interest in Mara's voicemail unless she would have known who the person was that Mara
Something
may have had a conflict with the
nefarious.
day
Yep.
before. Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. Monday.
All right. So we move up to Monday, which is the 9th. Uh, Apparently, a snowstorm had came in over the weekend at some point. You don't hear anybody talk about it, but we do know that UMass canceled classes on Monday, the 9th. Mara makes a phone call to Linda Salomon at 12:56 p.m. on Monday. That's the first action we see with her phone. So there's not a whole lot of action period, but we do know that Mara was checking things on her computer at that time, checking into some different lodging, I guess you could say. So she definitely has a plan in mind, I think, early on Monday. She made calls at 113, 114 to an Amherst number. And then she made her call that we all know about at 205 to 1-800-GHOST-STOVE, which at that time, apparently the phone lines were down and you got a pre-recorded message telling you about lodging in the area. However, you could not speak to someone or a computer to make reservations. Then she makes a call at 218 to Billy. That call was 1 minute, so I'm guessing it did not go to, he did not answer. And then the final call she makes is to her own voicemail again at 4:37, and that lasts for 4 minutes. And then that's the last we heard of her phone, other than the Londonderry ping, which, that's a whole other story as well.
Yeah.
So a little bit about the timing of things that happened that day. She makes her call to Billy at 2:18, and then we can kind of figure at that time she most likely leaves her dorm and maybe headed out at that time, because the ATM stills that we finally saw after 13 years of not being released, and we see those, and those are timestamped, I believe, in the ballpark of 3:15.
Yes.
So from what we've been told, she went to the ATM around 3:15, took out $280. From my research, I believe she had 296 in her account, but it only dispensed 20s. So that was as much as she could have gotten out. She had about $16 left. Next, made a stop at the liquor store once again, and that's the infamous receipt we see that's somehow redacted. And then possibly a stop by the Hadley Police Department to pick up accident forms, because Fred had told her she would need to fill out accident forms in triplicate for his insurance. So throwing a lot at you there, but what are your opinions, time frame, ATM photos, things like that, and why you think the liquor store receipt is redacted? So that's a lot, but what are your opinions on all those?
Yeah. Well, we go back to the Linda Salomon call.
Yep.
There's a lot of disputes about that as far as, well, why would she been looking for a 2-bedroom? She wasn't looking for a 2-bedroom. It was the place that the Murrays had rented before. And that's been confirmed. Linda Salomon doesn't remember even talking to Maura. And more than likely, Maura probably didn't, when she just said, no, I don't have it, it's not available, and again, then you have to think about the price that would have been. I mean, it's going to be more than her $280.
280 is not going to get you far.
No, not going to get you far, and for even a day. Yeah. So we know that. One thing I'll say about also while we're just there is that the police never contacted Linda Salomon until I don't even know how much longer.
I was going to bring up the same thing, that how could they have had these? They had the phone bills very quickly, the police. How they could have not have tried to contact everyone on there, especially when on the same day that you go missing.
On the same day, yeah.
How could they have not done that? But that's just a sign of the poor police work that was done throughout this whole case.
Exactly. And then we've got the the two calls made to Amherst at 113 and 114. And those are the ones that whenever I called back in the day, it was always no mailbox set up yet. And then the police have stated that the person connected to this telephone number had since moved on, which I thought to be a very interesting statement. Now, I will say that I just called that number 2 days ago after we had spoke on Monday when we did our other podcast. And I called the number and immediately it says, the person you're calling is not answering. No, it didn't ring. It didn't do anything.
It makes me wonder if that was the extent of the police research. They called, does not answer. Well, that person's moved on.
They've moved on. I do know that, let me see here.
Now, was that number a on-campus number?
I believe that that's what they decided it was. And then I called it. I had called it a couple times and it said, well, the no mailbox set up. And then it said, user not available. And then it's the UMass Resident Voicemail Center. Oh, no, enter your mailbox number to get message. So to me, that is Maura's dorm room. Doesn't that make sense? If that's what that's saying, if it said the user's not available, well, or no, it said UMass Resident Voicemail, enter your mailbox number to get your message. So why would Maura be calling that number? And why would it be saying that?
Well, I could look into it, but I know you and I both have the complete and entire list of all the UMass dorm numbers. It would take a minute to go through there, but I think we could look up and see if that in fact was Maura's main dorm cell number or main dorm number.
Yep.
And you know, if someone had the time, they could definitely find out who had that number at the time.
Yep, because it's like 2 minutes each. And it's just something that's always troubled me because I know that that's what they said was one of the last numbers that Maura called was on Monday, and it was like, and they had said that that person had moved on.
So, I wonder if there's any possibility that that is Erin Murphy's number, because she was looking to drop off her clothes back to Erin. So is there any chance that she tried to call Erin and say, hey, I'm going to come by and drop off your clothes?
But she got in touch with her. But she got in touch with her. So remember, Erin said that she actually talked to Maura.
I don't recall. I thought Erin just said that she had left the clothes at her door.
No, she called. She got a call from Maura, and Maura said something about, I've got the homework done. No, I think she had gotten all of her homework done, and that she had the clothes that she was going to drop off for her. And she said something about she had to leave, my sister. And that was in the phone call. What's that? To Erin?
Even to Erin, she mentioned this, my sister part.
I believe that was, yes. If we'd have to go back, but I'm pretty sure that that's what was said. And then Erin was supposedly had fallen asleep watching a movie. A knock came on her door. She wasn't awake enough to answer the door. When she finally got to the door, there was clothes left there, but no more.
Yep, I definitely remember that part.
I might have to go back and look again. I know that she called her. So that could, but that could be her number, but it seems like it might not be because she said she talked to her.
Okay, we can definitely look into
that. That may be something you want to put a star on.
Yeah,
is because we know that Erin said that Maura talked to her that day. So where is her telephone number? Because it certainly isn't, unless she had called her. No, because she wouldn't even have called her like on the 8th. There's nothing there.
She could have, if Mara had called Aaron from her own dorm room, we would not have any record of it. So that's a possibility.
True. Yep. Okay. We got that. Yep.
But
You
yeah,
get me on that?
we can definitely look up to see if this number does belong to a specific person. It would be difficult to search everyone to find just the number, but if we're looking for just Aaron or just a certain person, I think we could find that pretty easily.
I know I used to have the whole directory on my blog, and it might still be there, but unfortunately, you can't search it.
No, there's no way to
I've,
search it.
I've never
But
figured
I
out
still have it.
because if you could search it, that would be freaking awesome.
Yeah, if someone has
You
some
know,
extra
just
time
like
and
a
would like to
last
put that
name
into
or
a Excel sheet, that would be great.
yeah.
All right. So as far as the phones go, next thing we know about Mara is she's at the ATM. What's your take on everything that we've been shown and told about the ATM photos and her visit to the
Well,
ATM for that matter?
yeah, I mean the whole liquor store and ATM things are very strange to me. You know, the ATM or the liquor store video was never shown, I don't believe, to the family. It's never been shown to the public.
Yeah.
Um,
And
for during the
what we see in the
oxygen,
yeah, that on the
yeah,
oxygen, a lot of people have asked me about that one, said, yeah, it's on the oxygen. No, that was
recreation.
a scene made for the documentary.
Yeah,
That was not the actual footage.
it was actually the same girl that did that. I believe is the girl that was up at the recreation at the accident scene at
Hmm.
the Weatherby corner as well.
Yeah.
Um, so, um, that not seeing that, and then we have the redacted liquor store receipt, which just makes no sense to me unless they're trying to keep something from a possible perpetrator that would be the only person that would know that was
Yeah.
there. And
I,
again,
I don't see it. I've tried to
it just
think of
doesn't
reasons.
make
The only
sense.
thing I could think of is, maybe there's the perpetrator loved Jägermeister, and Jägermeister is on that receipt. That's the only reason I can even fathom, even though I don't even think that's a
Exactly.
big deal. But
Exactly. Yeah.
I've been baffled for that for years as to why you would redact the
Yeah.
liquor store receipt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then as far as the ATM videos go, or the stills, whatever, again, you have a case where this is a missing persons case, and this stuff was never shown even to the family to confirm
Mhm.
in the beginning that was Mora,
Yeah.
which
13
is
years before it
bizarre.
ever was released.
Yeah, and then when they finally do something, and let them see something, it's all still photos. There is no actual. They never show them an actual video
Mhm.
um, of the ATM. So that just again, it just makes you question why not. Um, the public, they're fine, whatever, but the family, to not show them either one of those videos to
Mhm.
make a confirmation way back in the beginning is absolutely ridiculous in my mind, unless they were. I mean, but it wouldn't have lasted that many years. I mean, unless in the beginning they were looking, of course, like at everybody, including the
Mhm.
Murray family, and they didn't want to play their cards as far as what they knew. Um,
Mhm.
that might be a possibility, but again, that's really stepping a long distance to,
Right.
you know, try and cover up something for what reason? Who knows?
Yeah. The couple things, and having no video for the ATM, that is true. Most ATMs, and I had a good friend who she was in charge of refilling the money at ATM, so I do know a little bit about them, and they are always just still photos. However, they're a series. They may be snapped every 4 seconds,
Mm-hmm.
but the ones that we saw in the auction show were not sequential. They only showed us a few of select ones, and they weren't anywhere you could compile them into something that was a still frame video. The other thing, and I'll get your opinion on this as well, is do you believe those ATM photos have been altered in any way? Because I do believe they have. Um,
Um,
and we get some conspiracy people, and you've been blamed for being one for quite a while. But anytime you have a
we
Yeah, nah. Anytime you have an opinion that differs from the norm in today's world, you're a conspiracy theorist. But nonetheless, one of the biggest things that I noticed with those, and I pointed out in a couple of the Facebook pages, and maybe I'll put this in a video as well, is the molding or trim work that goes around the ATM. If you look at that, I believe for certain that has been altered because there's two particular things that stuck out to me. Number one, where the doors are, there is no break in that trim. There has to be a break in the trim. The door has to swing to get open. And secondly, there's another one, and it's following the trim again with the reflection. It does not match what should be there for that particular trim work. I think there's been something most likely taken out of the videos. I find it a little strange, but not totally unbelievable that there is nothing in any of the photos outside the ATM building. It's a little small building there at the shopping center. There's no other cars. There's no other cars anywhere. You do get some that show one passing. But where did Maura park? If there's no one there, why wouldn't she park right in front of the building where her closest walk would be to the ATM? It makes no sense to me. So it makes me wonder, did she go to the ATM in a different car and she wasn't there in the Saturn? So any thoughts on that one?
That's a really hard one. I mean, with this case, sure, anything is possible. The photo's altered. If this happened way back in the beginning, I'd say that you were crazy. But because they made the family wait as long as they did for these photos, I think it's definitely possible that parts of them were photoshopped for some reason. And again, why was that? Was there somebody else with Maura? You know, standing behind her, telling her to take her money out of the bank? Was there a vehicle that you could see parked right outside? Something
But
that
we have heard, yeah, we have heard that there are some other stills that showed another vehicle outside, and that those people have been interviewed and cleared. I never really heard much more about it, but I definitely do know that that story was out there. But yet, none of it would be very easy to still show that car or something in the video, just blur out people if you need to, but nothing in any of those stills shows another car that we've seen.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a person who's contacted me a few times, and their theory of basically what you're talking about is over and above the top of just anything that anyone could ever believe. And if you think I'm a conspiracy theorist, let me just say that this person is right over the top with that.
This is not someone that we both know, is it?
You might know of him. I'm not sure,
okay. Well,
but I would
okay.
definitely discuss it with you personally.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll
Well,
actually send you stuff.
if you're saying him, then my person's a female, so not the same
I think
person.
I know who you mean as well.
and I know we both know the other person.
That might go right back to the tow truck stuff at the bar.
Yeah, it's another story for another day.
That's another story.
All right. Well, okay. Once we go to the ATM, we got to stop at the liquor store. We haven't seen the video from there or anything. The only thing left really of her, trip there, if everything happened the way we've been told it has been, will be a stop by the Hadley Police Department to pick up the forms. It's possible that she did do that. She went by there, picked them up. They were found in the car. It's also possible that she printed them out on a computer at her dorm or from someplace else too. I don't know if that, was a possibility, but either way, there's nothing there that makes a difference either way, in my opinion. So we've pretty much covered everything that we needed to cover at UMass. One other thing I would like kind of your thoughts on is most people have followed the case, know the guy's name, but his name's Alden Olson.
Mm-hmm.
We know him for a lot of reasons, but he's crazy, but he's also crazy smart too, and I think in a lot of ways. What's your opinion on him getting the no trespass notice when he had went to UMass just to question someone about the sticker that was on Mara's car? And to my understanding, he only asked a UMass police officer, where's lot number 12? And apparently followed him around, got his plate, showed up at his house with a no trespass warrant. That to me is super strange if all that is true. And he has video of a cop at his house.
Um,
So I have no reason not
well,
to believe him.
yeah, I mean, as far as that happening, no, I have no reason not to believe that as well. I used to just read or see the stuff that Alden was doing, and it blew my mind. I mean, it was just it's definitely crazy. But I would say one thing: I believe that he's a genius.
Mhm.
He's very, very smart, very high IQ, no doubt in my mind. Um, does he have anything to do with the disappearance of Mora? No, I don't think so.
Mhm.
But I have to say that some of the things that he did certainly points to him just acting that way. But I became not friends with Alden, but I have to say internet acquaintances, and we talked a lot about a lot of different theories and thoughts that both of us had over the years and everything. And we had our falling outs here and there because I just would not agree with some of the things that he had said. But the one thing that he did say, we know that it's the truth, is he said he went to Lot 12, or I mean, he went to UMass and he approached one of the UMass police officers, and you can edit his name out if you want, but it was Jeffrey Skinner.
Mhm.
And Jeffrey, when asked, Alden asked him something about where security people that work in these buildings can park, and where is lot number 12. And because of that, um, they told him to leave, to get off the campus, go away. He did. And then I think it was a few days later that they showed up at his apartment, two police officers, and I believe another cop that wasn't, might have been
I'd have to
three.
go back and look at the video again, but I know there were at least two there. There may have been three or
Yeah.
four. I'm not really
And
sure.
they told him, they served him with a no trespass order for UMass.
Hmm. Yeah, I've always found that to be super strange. And the question about the security, where do security folks park? That's understandably raises a red flag, but to the point of a no trespass, I, I don't see it. And no, we won't edit out the Skinner's name because he's a whole nother story in itself. It's not just this only one time that we've heard his name. There's some
Mm-hmm.
rather strange pictures out there of some local girls and some
Yeah.
police departments around there. Just really make no sense. So yeah, we'll leave that name in there. Maybe people look into that just a bit.
Yeah.
All right, John. Well, I think we've covered pretty much everything up to her time of leaving UMass. I've always said that with this case, if you want to solve it, you've got to figure out a reason why the New Hampshire State Police and the UMass Police worked together or supported each other in any decisions. Because I don't think if something happened at UMass, I don't think UMass would care about New Hampshire. And if New Hampshire knew everything happened there only, they wouldn't really care what UMass police were concerned about. There's some reason that these two are connected. So I think when you to figure out what happened tomorrow, you've got to go all the way back to the beginning, and hopefully that's what we've done today and raised a few questions. We don't have all the answers, but the only way this gets solved is people continue to ask questions. Um, that pretty much wraps it up. John, anything you want to add?
No, just like you just said, that's the only way the case is going to get solved. You know, we've been going this many years, and you know, certainly there's been more generated leads because of all the resources that have been happening, the podcasts that have been coming out. I mean, the Murrays and Tammy were able to acquire billboards, which brought in several leads, and it really sparks some interest, which I think is great. and that's what's needed. And a bunch of, like I say, it happens every day now that people like ourselves are going through this stuff and over and over and over, and somebody ends up solving it. It might not be you, it might not be me, but somebody is going to go, holy shit, you know, they just said something that really made sense to me. And now if I go back and think about it, boom, and there it is. And I've discussed that with Julie again, over the times. And it's that one piece of puzzle that we've got the puzzle on the table, and that damn cat knocked that one piece off, and it's underneath the table or underneath the couch. And it's so close to us, but we can't find it. And it's right there, and it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time.
Yep. All right, folks, we'll wrap it up, and hopefully we can John back it in for another episode. I'm kind of envisioning you and I having a talk maybe just on the timeline. I'm sure we can definitely have an episode just involving that and the real timeline, the insinuated timeline, all kinds of things on that one, but we'll save that one for then. So again, John, thank you for joining me. Those of you just watching for the first time, thank you for watching the True Crime Monkey podcast and YouTube channel. John Smith, who's been on the case since the beginning, is my co-host and will be my co-host for many, many of these Maura Murray episodes if he'll do it. And that's pretty much it, guys. We're signing off. Enjoy the next one. Do me a favor, please like and subscribe. It helps the YouTube algorithm get this up to the top, get more people watching it. And like John said, it's just finding that one person who knows one thing that may get this case solved. That's it, guys. Appreciate it. Good night.
Peace. Good night, everybody.